Welcome to another episode of the official Capcom Pro Tour pre-show, No Neutral. I am Big Durag Hollywood, RobTV, and I am here with the one and the only, the uber famous. Can't walk nowhere at a tournament without taking 500 pictures. It's quite annoying, to be honest with you. The biggest content creator in the game, my man's Brian F. What's going on with you, dog?
How many lies are going to fit into one intro? It's honestly impressive at this point. But for that said, at least you weren't commenting on my shirt at this point. Every time I join the call,
why are you?
I like my.
Bro.
It's flattering. What can I say?
Bro,
I know you.
So what color do you consider that? Because I would say it's nude. You're a grown man, and you went to the store and said, "Yeah, I'm gonna get the nude." Did you ask the lady at the front, like, "Hey, where's your nude?"
I said I want to make sure everyone thinks I'm shirtless every time I show up on camera. Yes, that's exactly what I said.
Well,
but there's more important things to talk about, Rob. Listen, stop trying to imagine me shirtless here. We got to talk about one of the most significant sets in Street Fighter 6 short but exciting history so far. Okay, we had to talk about it. We're talking about Snake Eyez qualifying for Capcom Cup out of the US West CPT event. And it wasn't just that he qualified using Zangief. It was that he qualified using Zangief in the face of great adversity, right? He was going up against Reynold in both winners finals and grand finals, rocking the villain of the scene right now. I mean, I feel like there's no other way to put it, JP, right? So
yes.
On paper and in reality, definitely a bad matchup for Zangief. It was a classic zoner versus grappler battle. And somehow, Snake Eyez pulled off a victory, but that's what we're here to break down. I think one thing about Street Fighter 6's design, which helps in a lot of these sort of like unfavorable matchups, is that there's a lot of universal defensive mechanics that still mean that if you have the reads and you understand the player and understand how to approach a matchup, you can still make the unlikely possible, right? We have parry, we have other defensive mechanics, but really, when you look at how Snake Eyez won this set, he didn't use too many of those mechanics besides in a few sparing moments. It was good old-fashioned walk and block.
Oh my God, there's so much. Yes, bro.
Reynold put Snake Eyez in losers and winners finals 3-0. I mean, it was pretty much typical of what we expected. Snake Eyez was getting rounds there, but that was kind of what people were predicting when you see on paper JP versus Zangief. Like, Snake Eyez got around a couple of games, but it's just he had to get in so many more times than JP has to do it all, because JP can just keep him out the entire time, right? So once he gets in, can he stay in? It's not likely, right? But this time, that very first game, just observe the way Snake Eyez bulldogs his way in. Reynold likes to throw out the certain OD portal to control the screen. Reynold would always do the light and the heavy version, which put one really far close to the opponent, one really close, so kind of had that gap in the middle. And then Snake Eyez kept recognizing that situation, and he would just walk forward, block a projectile, walk forward, block a projectile. And every time he did that, he would push that portal off screen. And once you stretch the screen and make the portal go off screen, it goes away, right? And then suddenly he has more freedom to move because there's no looming threat of the spike coming from above.
That is
so
fire.
Reynold kept doing that, spending his drive meter to do that, and Snake Eyez was recognizing that. I was like, wait, if I find these pixels to move forward, I will move forward, move that off the screen, and then when I block the next projectile, it does like a tiny bit of drive meter. And that first game, he bulldogs Reynold that style all the way to the corner, holds down back when he's finally got JP in the corner, and just waits for that jump out, and then instantly EX Lariat into the SPD comboed, because finally, once you get JP into that spot, he squirms like anybody else, man. There is the OD amnesia to potentially counter an SPD, but once you're in that spot where you're in SPD range and Zangief is just like, are you going to sit here and take the command grab, or are you going to jump? You're going to crack, right? And Snake Eyez was fighting for that position that whole game. And so he gets the first game in that set demonstrating that style, but it wasn't easy that first set because he goes down to almost losing the whole tournament. After winning that first game, he goes down 2 games, and Reynold almost closed out and won the whole events. He was on match point twice.
Yeah, and then from that point, we know that Snake Eyez just went through and absolutely destroyed him. Didn't even lose another game from that point. He ended up going to reset the bracket at 1-3-0, but I want to make sure I point this out. When we say bulldogging, and I'm not even going to just explain the term, I just think that it's easy to underestimate the significance or undersell the significance of what we saw him do. Because for him to walk you have to. He's specifically choosing these. He has to read his opponent's timing. There's character matchup things to know, but it's especially a player thing for him to know exactly when he can walk, for him to know exactly when he can jump in, for him to not be just push back from his opponent. You know, for him to whiff punish. He found those perfect moments to inch forward. So I promise you guys, that is what we've seen from Snake Eyez. He has some of the best neutral I've seen. That was one of the best performances that we ever seen in CPT Online. Easily. Definitely.
Yeah, and that walk and block is so important because, like you mentioned, he's reading the timing on the spikes, and there's set gaps too, right? Like, you have to understand the matchup. A lesser Zangief would probably just hold down back and be like, I can't do anything, right? Just spike, projectile. But there's gaps between them, and those pixels that you move forward, they add up, right? Like, you know, every inch counts in this approach that you take. And then once he gets into that range, I do think Zangief's buttons are kind of good in that range. Like, one thing about the Zangief sweep, which he relied on, is a really good whiff punish. First of all, if he gets the sweep, he gets to apply a mix, right? That's huge for Zangief. But also, like, if you fish for that, the best punish JP gets at, like, max range is just stand medium punch. And Snake Eyez knows, like, that's nothing. Like, I reached out to him for comment on this, and he mentioned, like, yeah, like, a big part of what I can do is I can use my health as a resource to bulldog my way in, right? If I get, like, nicked with a poke that doesn't convert into a full knockdown and screen carry, like, because JP, if he gets, like, the stand fierce punch, combos with the EX fireball into the spike, that's bad because, you know, you reset the whole situation. You're back to playing Super Mario from full screen, right? That's bad. But if you're eating something like the stand medium punch, that annoying cane whip where he reaches far forward, that's just a little bit of damage. That tickles Zangief. It doesn't cause this knockdown and reset the situation. He can afford to eat those. So if he can bulldog his way in, find those sweeps, and then you get the momentum, he can risk doing something like a sweep on block at that kind of range, right? Even if he's not just whiff punishing, which he did do. He also did whiff punishing, but he can also risk those buttons as well because the reward is so worth it in that instance.
All this character matchup, the stuff that Brian is pointing out is, even if your character loses a matchup overall, there are pockets, there's places where your character wins. And the better of a player you are, you can make the matchup go to those spots on the screen more consistently and take advantage of that. So that's not downplay or anything like that. We believe that JP,
I find it's kind of ridiculous that explaining a matchup, you have to clarify that I'm not downplaying. But I thank you for taking the heat off me in this moment, so that we can go back to using our brains and trying to break down how to win in Street Fighter. But that said, that I reached out to Snake Eyez, like I said, for comment, and it's funny you mentioned that because he said in the first set, winners finals, where he got 3-0'd, it was kind of a wash. Like, some games were competitive, but the other ones were just clean out zoning from JP, keeping Zangief out. He said that he was trying to focus on Reynold's habits in that set a lot more, but then when it came to grand finals, he said, forget Reynold's style. I'm just going to focus on what I know about the matchup. He went straight back to look. Snake Eyez is a grinder. Like, we talked about Snake Eyez being a god. How did he get to that way? He puts in the hours. This guy has been gaming so much since he's been a competitive fighting game player. He streams nonstop. He puts in the work. He knows all the nuances. He knows these matchups. JP, they're out there and ranked, and Snake Eyez is grinding, running into them and figuring out how to approach. So he said, screw trying to play specifically against Reynold. He tried to just play the matchup in that sense, and then that's where he found a lot more success. I think it wasn't just the matchup. I think he was playing the matchup very well, but we still saw him going down 2-1 in that set. Reynold was on match point twice, and there was a couple circumstances where he could have potentially converted to level 3 and won the whole tournament, been in Capcom Cup.
I'm glad that you bring that up.
He didn't find those moments.
That's a choke.
I think when Grand Final started, I think Snake Eyez showed his strategy, and I don't think it changed as the set progressed. What I think is that Reynold was not handling the pressure as it built up, right? So he was up 2-1. I think that entire time, even as Reynold was winning games, Snake Eyez was still, it's like that monster movie, the slow monster approaching. You see it on the horizon, and no matter how far away you run, you look back, it's still approaching. Like, he was just always inching closer, game after game after game. And when he didn't get that moment to close out, Snake Eyez wins 4 games straight to win the whole tournament. To Reynolds' credit, like, another factor with this is, yeah, JP definitely beat Zangief, but who are you practicing the Zangief matchup with to be ready for this moment?
And Brian, who are you playing the Zangief matchup with to be placing him on a tier list? I'm glad you used that sentence because that's my whole point. If you have not, I'm telling you, as somebody who plays Danny fan, bro, I promise you, dog. Like you do not play against any good Zangiefs. How y'all all putting him in this trash tier and you don't play as you don't play one Zangief. You don't know good Zangiefs. If you have not played, I'm gonna assume Brutus is godlike. I have not played him, but from what I know that Danny fan is, when we see him at Evo. He's godlike. You're not gonna play Danny Pham and think that the character is trash. I promise you that.
Right.
So
you're not gonna play Snake Eyez and think the character is trash. The character, I mean, like I said, it's a modern Street Fighter. I would still argue that Zangief has more bad matchups than most characters. Absolutely.
That's fair.
But you can overcome those matchups by being the better player, for sure. Like, players like Snake Eyez, they find a way to get it done because Snake Eyez he has fused with the Zangief in his cerebrum at this point. It's just part of his DNA at this point. And if you get to that level by spending years dedicating to the character, you can make the impossible possible, right? And I don't even want to call it impossible. I'm using that for dramatic effect. Right? If you practice enough and put in the thousands of hours that it takes to compete at this level, you can do it, right? So I think Snake Eyez is just showing that here, and that when you get to that level, you play, you start to see the game the Matrix style, right? You see the game for what it is. You don't just see like, oh, I'm being zoned out and impressed from full screen. Yes. You find every little advantage you can find, every inch of space you can cover, and you make it happen. And also, I think there's the player psychology part. I think Snake Eyez was just mentally stronger for this set, absolutely. And I think when you play an advantage character, like putting myself in Reynold's position, once I lost after being up 2-1 and it was 2-2, I would be terrified. I would be a little bit scared the whole time. Like, okay, I'm doing okay. I'm keeping him out. I'm doing all right. I'm about to win, and then I don't. Oh, no. Am I about to lose? Is he about to reset the bracket? Am I about to lose the favorable matchup? Do I have to win a whole other set now to get into Capcom Cup? Is he figuring out my patterns? Is he getting in? Oh, wait, now he's in SPD range. Do I jump? You know what I mean? It just, the psychological pressure it exerts over time can be the difference maker. And I think the longer set format helps Snake Eyez mentally break down Reynold. Like Snake Eyez was just consistent bulldozing his way through the zoning barrage, and Reynold wasn't able to adapt in time.
Brian, I just want to point out, bro, I feel like before we even wrap this all up, your breakdown, I feel like we both just did it great. Like that was one of my favorite breakdowns that we did. But the way that you broke down some of the technical sides of that's one of my favorite breakdowns that I heard from you, bro. That was dope and interesting for me too.
Snake Eyez, whether he consciously knew it or not, I think deep down he knew he could win because he had the tools and the skills to do it, and he got the job done against the perceived odds. And we're always searching for solutions to all the problems. Even if you play a character like JP or Ken, you're still looking for solutions to problems. If these games were so easily solved, they would not be entertaining for us to play. The human mind craves problem solving and adversity, and that's what we look to. So we try to find solutions to these problems. Trust me, if it was that easy, it wouldn't be worth doing. So get in the lab, pick the character that you truly identify with, do your best, and try to win.
And that is exactly what these players are about to do, Brian. Conversations like this is what the FGC is all about, baby. I love this stuff, bro. I'm telling you. Right now, we are about to get into top 16. We are about to see who is going to be able to make it to the finals day as they try to get a step closer to making it in to Capcom Cup. $2 million on the line. People's heartbeat gonna be sounding like Sasquatch feet. Who is going to be able to take it? We're about to see. Asia East, top 16. Let's get into it.